about to lose. It was a statement made in 1967, 52 years ago, by Robert F. Kennedy. And he said something to the effect: to be an American is to have been a stranger, an outcast, and to come to the exile's country, and to know that he who denies the outcast and the stranger also denies America. It resonates with me not only because we have a president who has promised to ban all Muslims from coming to this country that is comprised of the people of the planet, every walk of life, every tradition of faith, that violates everything that I think about this country and reminds me of the Third Reich, if it reminds me of any country. What other country has said that there are one people because of their religion that are somehow inherently violent or defective and should be banished from our country? It's not only because Donald Trump has described Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals. It's not just because he's described members of the Klan or neo-Nazis or white supremacists as very fine people. And it's not only because those words and his rhetoric have led to policies and practices and actions that are fundamentally changing this country right now. Hate crimes in America are up every single one of the last 3 years. In fact, today we commemorate the 3rd anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida. You don't put kids in cages at the US-Mexico border, deport their moms back to the very country from which they fled, and keep them separated, visiting a cruelty and a torture on that child, unless you have first called asylum seekers animals or an infestation. So a good moment to remember just who we are as a country. Whether the O'Rourke's coming here in the 19th century, fleeing famine that took the lives of more than 1 million in Ireland, or those families who are showing up right now, tonight, in my hometown of El Paso, Texas, after making a 2,000-mile journey on foot, some of it atop, but not inside of a train known as the Beast or La Bestia, fleeing violence and poverty and famine in the likes of which we have never seen in the Western Hemisphere. We are a country of immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees, and that is the very foundation of our strength, our success, and yes, also our security. But I also think about the outcasts who are in this country, who have been kept out of our economy, who are working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, because working one job full-time is not enough to put food on the table or to pay the note on their student loan debt or their mortgage. Folks who are dying of diabetes in the wealthiest, the most powerful country on the face of the planet because insulin is out of reach. Or someone shared with me today, PrEP, which can ensure that we save thousands of lives in this country. PrEP, a drug that was invented by the United States taxpayer that will stop the spread of HIV, is being sold back to us at the most expensive prices on the face of the planet. People who've literally been drawn out of the ability to be well enough to live their lives to their full potential. Or I think about those who are bearing the brunt of climate change right now, whether it is in Iowa, where we just spent the weekend, where you saw historic flooding in both the Missouri River and the Mississippi River on either side of the state, towns that had never meaningfully flooded, completely underwater. The people in those communities lost everything that they had accumulated over the course of their lives. I think about people who feel estranged from a government that is not meeting the challenges of this moment. And they're the greatest that we have ever faced, whether it's the economy, whether it's healthcare, whether it's climate, or whether it's immigration and what we are doing at our borders. And I think the way to meet this challenge, in the spirit of RFK's words, is to bring everybody into this democracy and ensure that the full power and genius of the United States is brought to bear so that we can overcome them. And the single greatest mechanism by which we can do that is our democracy. And I started out telling you about Texas because there was a democracy that was badly broken, that did not reflect the majority of the people in the state, and by creating a movement, we were able to begin to fix that democracy. This past week in Georgia, we announced a bold set of democracy reforms to make sure that at this defining moment, our democracy truly shines. We call for bringing in 55 million additional Americans into our democracy,
through same-day and automatic voter registration, making sure that young people are registered, pre-registered at the age of 16 and 17 so that they're ready to vote at the age of 18. Removing barriers that have been put in place based on race or ethnicity. Texas was 50th because it was drawn that way and people were drawn out. Through a new Voting Rights Act that ensures that you do not have voter ID laws that discriminate based on race. And as we saw in Georgia, that a Secretary of State cannot purge the rolls from hundreds of thousands of voters who were unable to participate at all. And then we make sure that we restore confidence in this democracy. A paper trail or receipt or ballot for every vote cast. Full audits of the elections that take place in this country to protect us from attacks from without and from within this democracy. The end of gerrymandering, whereby members of Congress choose their own voters instead of the other way around. Getting PAC money out of our federal politics so that those in elected office listen to those who put them in office in the first place, the very people they represent, not the corporations or special interests or those who can command their attention and pay for the outcomes. And then lastly, term limits to ensure that we do not have the perpetual re-election of people who are already in power, and so that this democracy truly reflects the diversity of this country. I am confident that if we bring everyone in through our democracy, if we run that way in this campaign, going everywhere, listening to everyone, writing nobody off, taking no one for granted, then we will be up to this defining moment of truth and will forever be known by this country's ambitions, our aspirations, the work and the resolve that we're willing to bring to bear in order to achieve them. That is what has moved me to run for president, to serve you, and to run in this way that brings in every single one of our fellow Americans. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak to you tonight, to support this campaign, and to answer some of your questions. Mark, thank you for having me out. Appreciate it.